and then we'll start recording.
Okay, last. All right. Abby, מה נשמע?
בסדר, מה העניינים?
בסדר. יופי, you got my mail?
I got your mail.
תודה.
תודה לך.
Okay, so we can start whenever you're ready.
Excellent. Okay. Welcome everybody to our annual Jerusalem Municipality introduction to the school system in Jerusalem. We're going to spend some time this evening speaking to parents who recently made the Aliyah and sent their kids into local schools, speaking for the first time to alumni, Olim that went through the experience themselves as students in the high school, and then also speaking to some fantastic municipal resources in the education department to learn about the school system here in Israel. But before we start with that, I want to introduce my esteemed colleague, Yaakov Berger.
Thank you, Yisrael. Pleasure to take part tonight and to be in touch with all of our pre-Aliyah candidates and to let them know that we're here and able to help. Obviously, tonight we're going to focus on a very important topic, picking the right school, knowing about educational options and how to get signed up before you make Aliyah. But we also just want to let you know we're here to help with a wide variety of topics. We help not only with finding the right schools, but also finding the right neighborhoods, connecting to an appropriate community, how to strategize your job search. We will also help accompany you through the bureaucratic stages of Aliyah. In short, any questions you have about your Aliyah process and what it would be like to live here in Jerusalem, feel free to reach out to us. We're going to put our contact details in the comments, both in the Zoom chat and on the Facebook page. So I would say the underlying message, feel free to be in touch. You have questions, you're not sure what's next, you're not sure how to handle different stages of Aliyah, you're concerned about employment, neighborhoods, communities, what your children are going to do. We're here to help you organize your thoughts on all those things and confront those challenges one at a time. And tonight we're going to take a better look at the school system. Hopefully everyone will come away just with a better understanding of what the options are and how to go about finding the best, what's best for your children.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Yaakov, for the introduction. If anyone has questions about employment in Israel, Yaakov is the person to speak to strategize in finding employment here in Jerusalem. Our evening today is going to be divided into three sections. The first section, we're going to speak to municipal representatives from the education department, and we're going to talk about the idea of choosing how to choose the right school here in Jerusalem and speak very briefly about the registration process and how we can help you register for a school before you arrive in the country. I want to remind you that Jerusalem has a huge education system. In fact, there are more kids studying in schools in Jerusalem than there are residents in the city of Ashkelon. It's a huge, huge system. And that's why it's so important to make sure that you find the right school for your children. I want to introduce two people. We have a position in the Jerusalem Municipality Education Department of a Megasheret. Megasheret is a mediator between the school and the family, the Olim family. But you're lucky to hear not from one, but to hear from two Megashrot, from Abby, who is leaving the position, and Dorit, who's entering. Perhaps you would be able to introduce yourselves, Abby, and then Dorit.
Hi, I just want to strengthen a point. The Jerusalem municipality saw that there's a difficulty in bridging the gaps sometimes between the schools and the families. The expectations, the language can be a barrier. And so they decided to create a job as a facilitator for Anglo Olim in the school system. And that's what I was doing, and that was what Dorit is doing.
Excellent. Dorit, would you like to introduce yourselves very briefly?
Yeah, just to say that my name is Dorit. I'm very happy to be with you here. Happy to accompany you throughout the process here once you're here in Israel. It's a process, but we do it together.
Excellent. Dorit is phenomenal. She's very modest, but she helps each family one by one, on a one-on-one service to help you navigate the schools. It's not just about finding the right school, but it's also about navigating the relationship with the school. And that's where Dorit comes in to help you navigate your relationship with the school once you've arrived in Israel. Okay, we wanted to just spend a few minutes talking about the idea of how to choose the right school here in Jerusalem. We're going to go to the first slide. This is the Yaakov. Would you mind going to the first slide? Sorry. Oh, number 2, then the next one. Excellent. How to choose a school. Okay. I'm going to take one and talk about a box, and then elementary school is, where do you live? All things being equal, the neighborhood school is really the best option. Because when you send your child to the neighborhood school, it means that your friends in the neighborhood are also your friends in school. They're going to be the same friends in school and at home. And because you'll have the same set of friends at home and at school, you'll allow your kids to have good friends in all areas. If you send to a school, elementary school, outside of your neighborhood, it means that your kid may have less neighborhood friends. And since in Israel, a lot of times kids spend a lot of hours outside in the local park or the local youth movement. So when they have the same set of friends, school and home, that can really help in their integration. Box number 1. Abby, do you want to talk about one of the other boxes?
I'll go to the next one because it's just easier to go according to the boxes. The school system is a little bit different as far as navigating than it is in North America, as far as where you go, what the next stage is. So if you have a child in elementary school, you want to sort of understand where the graduates of that elementary school go for middle school or for high school. Because you sort of the kids sort of stay in one kind of a derech, a way. And I think that it's important to ask the school when you consider your school options, you want to know where the kids are going to go, where the kids that graduate that elementary school or that high school go after school, like what happens to those kids. So that family can make direct for your family as far as your ideology, as far as how you see the future of your children.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. I want to talk briefly. The next one is Bet Sefer Kolet Aliyah. It's an Aliyah integration school. There are schools with a large concentration of Olim in them. The more Olim in the school in general, the more resources will be available for Olim to teach them Hebrew and staff members to understand the world they're coming from. The larger the number of Olim, the better the resources will be for Olim in that school. we haven't yet mentioned, but I will mention now, a very, very important person is somebody called Natalie Atlan. She works for the Municipal Olim department. She is the Olim coordinator. At the moment, Natalie is working together with 16 families who are making Aliyah in September, guiding them to make sure that they find the right school for next year. We work very closely with Natalie in the Aliyah department to ensure that the Olim go to the right school. And part of what she does is helps guide groups of Olim to particular schools so that the resources available for Olim are all concentrated in one particular school. If you're thinking about where you want to go next year, I would highly recommend you contact us after our Zoom. We can arrange a Zoom meeting with myself and with Natalie to discuss your options and to see which schools will be the best ones for you. Yes. Abby?
Okay, the next one is does the religious level in the school reflect that of your family? I think this is a very important issue, but I think that also North American Olim who send to a certain kind of school, and let's give as an example, Beis Yaakov. If you send to Beis Yaakov in the States and you decide that you want to send to Beis Yaakov here, the school systems are very, very different as far as what they offer, as far as the matriculation, even though it's like the same title of a school, they're not the same. It is very important to look into the schools. Obviously, it should reflect your family's religious level, but understand that what you know as apples, it might be oranges here, and it might be a completely different kind of school, even though you assume that it was the same kind of school. So you have to really watch, and you have to speak to people who sent to these schools, and to Dorit and Israel and Natalie, as far as what your expectations are, both on a religious level and on a social level and on an academic level, in order to make sure that the fit is the right fit for your kid, even if it's not the same category of a school that you thought you were going to send to.
Excellent. Thank you, Abby. I have to say that one of the things that Natalie and myself, we work hardest on is to make sure there's a match. We often try to match a potential Olim family with a family who are already sending to a particular school, and then having a conversation with parents, Olim like yourselves, who are already in the school. You can really get a clear idea of what the school is like. I'm going to do 2 boxes just to save a bit of time. The next one is, how does a school in Israel match a school attended abroad? The truth is, it's very similar to what Abby put so well about apples and oranges. That was a fantastic way to put it. The schools in Israel are different to the schools outside of Israel. You won't find a school in Israel that is the same as the school that you have in Chutz La'aretz. There are aspects that are very important here that are less serious than Chutz La'aretz. Some things that are more taken, the priorities are very, very different. But there are certain schools, if you went from a certain school in Chutz La'aretz, then there's a good chance that there's a stream that will fit you here in Israel. That's important. And the next one is, don't forget that it's not just sending to a school, but you're also sending to a class. If you could find out what the class is like, that's also important. You could send to the best school with the most experienced head teacher with a wonderful educational philosophy. But if that particular class are not great kids, so then it wouldn't necessarily be a good place for your kids. You need to know about not just the school, but you also need to know about the class. Abby, do you want to make a final
Israel,
comment?
if I can add just one thing, can I just add one point?
Of course, obviously.
Okay, I just want to say that as parents, you know your kids the best. So the more information you give us about your kids, the better we can try and help match the best school possible. There, like he says, there's no perfect school, but there are different kinds of schools with specific things inside the school. And you know your kids the best. There are different schools in Israel, and there are new schools in Jerusalem that open up almost every year now. And so if your kid is, you know their strengths, and there's already enough with the move, the transition, the cultural gaps. And if we know of a certain strength that your kid may have, and he might thrive in a certain school, that can really help us if you tell us. That's all in all to say that the information that you give us about the kid is very important. The transparency and the trust that you have.
Very
Okay.
important. Thank you, Dorit. Thank you. Absolutely. Very, very important point. Abby, do you want to share a final word?
No, I want to strengthen what Dorit says, but I don't want to sound like the pessimist, but I want to say, if you know that your child is a little more challenging, you have a learning issue in the States or in England or wherever you're from, and you share it with us or share it with the school, it will allow the school to serve you better. These are schools that have 30 kids in a class if you're lucky. And they don't have all the remedial help that some of the schools abroad have. But if you level with the school about where you are and where your child is at, then the school will probably be able to serve you better. And hiding the information doesn't help anybody.
Excellent. Abby, thank you so much. I'm far too British to say that. I'm so happy you were here to say it as it is. That's such an important point. And I'm so happy that you said that so clearly and so well. Okay, we're going to leave now the topic of choosing a school. I'm going to just add one more point at the end, and that is to say that it's very, very important to speak to Natalie pre-Aliyah in order to make sure you find the right school. And in most cases, we can help you register for the class in the school before you make Aliyah, which means when you get on the airplane in Chutz La'aretz in order to make Aliyah, you can leave your country of origin with a place in the school in Israel, which is really a phenomenal service that's available here in Jerusalem. That, as both Abby and Dorit said, the more information, the more you share about your children, the easier it is to make the appropriate match in order to make sure that you're in the right school. Thank you both very, very much. We're going to end the screen share now, with your permission, Yaakov. And now we're going to turn to our first guest, Shira. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Shira made Aliyah 2 years ago with her family.
Almost 4 years ago.
Are you serious? Oh my word, that is amazing. Shira, would you share briefly a little bit about your journey, a little bit about your family?
Sure. So we made Aliyah almost 4 years ago. In July, it'll be 4 years. At the time, we had a 5-year-old son and an 8.5-year-old daughter. Now they're almost 9 and 12. We saw my son through his year in Gan, and then through a year in first grade, where we decided that the school wasn't a good fit for him, and we switched to a new school. And my daughter's been in the same school since 3rd grade. She's in Kita Vav now. She's graduating this year, and we've actually just begun the application process for middle school, which technically here is high school. So we just had her interview, and we live in Ramot. I live with my husband and our 2 kids in Ramot.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. 4 years, I can't believe that. That's really amazing. So one advert for Aliyah. Now, could you share something about your experience of integrating your kids into Israeli schools? Anything that surprised you, things that were different, things that, you know, were not as you may have expected them when you arrived?
I laugh because when we come from the States, we really have no idea what to expect. We were sending to private school, we were sending to yeshiva, and we were paying yeshiva tuition. I'll tell you a really funny story real quick. One of the first days of school, right after we had made Aliyah, I went into the office to speak to the mazkirut, to the secretary, and I sat down and I said, okay, how much do I owe you? I was sending my kids to a Torani school, so you pay a little bit, like a couple shekel, really. And I sat down and I said, how much do I owe you? And she told me, I don't know, it was some nominal fee. And I flipped out. I was like, do you know how much money I spent last year on yeshiva tuition for my 2 children? It would blow your mind. And I told her, and she just was laughing and laughing. And I was hysterical. So let's just put it this way. When you're in the States, you are paying for and also receiving private school education. In Israel, it's public school, which means it's free, but it's also public school. And so what we're used to in the States is we're used to being courted because they want our money. We're used to having influence because they want our money. And here, they don't really care if you're here or not, in the sense that the school's going to do its own thing. It has a very, very specific mahalach, a very specific way of being from the Misrad HaChinuch. And we have the ability to be very influential, but it's different. It's in a different way than we're used to, and we have to be prepared for that. Everything here is about culture, meaning the adaptation. It's about culture and fluency. And so there's a certain point, there's this acceptance as a parent that even though I was fully functional and extremely fluent in being an adult and a parent in America, here, even though I speak Hebrew, and my Hebrew is actually pretty good, there's always going to be something that's missing. And so if you're not paying for your yeshiva tuition, what you will be paying for is tutoring costs, because at a certain point, maybe even at 3rd grade, 4th grade, depending on your level of fluency in Hebrew, you're going to age out of being able to help your kids with their homework. And that's okay. That's okay, because I promise you, when you see your children fluent and excelling and learning math in Hebrew, it's phenomenal. I'll tell you a great story, which basically when my child first came to Israel, I remember it was November. She'd only been there a few months, and I had a meeting with the mechanechet, and she said, with the teacher, and she said, why, ze chaval, it's so sad. Ayelet only got an 85 on her math test. And I looked at her and I was like, you're telling me that my kid, who's been here for 4 months, who barely speaks Hebrew, got an 85 on her math test? That's phenomenal. And she was like, it is? And I was like, yeah, it is. And I had to educate this teacher. This was the first time this teacher ever had an Ola child in her class. And today, actually, I saw her at the school, and she came to me and she said, why, Shira, she's amazing. Now my kid is going to the 3rd and 4th grade classes and helping them with their work, with their math, because it's about fluency. So yes, it's something that I'm going to struggle to help her with, but with time and fluency, she is excelling tremendously. So I think that ultimately we just need, us parents need we need to pop off our heads and put them on in a different way a little bit, because the things that we expect are going to be easy for us, or what we're used to is just not. It's just not. And ultimately, it comes down to culture. I could keep going, but I think there's another question that will feed into that.
Yes. Talking about culture, the difference between the culture in Israel as opposed to the culture in America. There's a story that goes around the whole of the Jerusalem municipality. And it happened to you. And I have to say, in thinking about who could speak, it's really you and the story of your banana cake. Could you share the banana cake story?
Yeah. So basically, this whole story feeds into this cultural aspect. Why it's really important as parents for us to gain cultural fluency through support. because you can't do it on your own. So when my kid was in third grade, she had just gotten to Israel, and every so often there would be a misiba, there'd be a party, and the class kind of would split up who was responsible for bringing what. And my daughter was responsible for bringing a cake. And so her favorite cake was banana cake. And so we made the most unbelievable banana cake I've ever made. And I'm not a great baker, but this was the best banana cake I've ever made. And it was humongous. It was beautiful and it smelled so good. And so she brought it to school and she was so excited. She's a little kid with this big banana cake, and she comes into the class and she cuts it up into like 1,000 pieces and she hands it out to the whole class, including the teacher. And one girl takes a bite. Now you have to remember this, the class had about, it was like a third or a quarter Anglo, and then the rest were Israeli. And then one Israeli girl took a bite and she said, "Ich," which means ew. And then another girl said "ich," and then all of the kids brought their plates or the little napkins with the pieces of cake back and gave them back to my daughter. Now the teacher also refused to eat the cake. Now, what was wrong with the cake? Nothing. The cake was delicious. It's that Israelis don't know what banana cake is. And so my kid came home. I came to pick her up at school that day, and she's holding this tin, and it's full. It's full of cake. And I said, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" And she said, "Nobody would eat my cake." And she felt so othered, so rejected. It was like it was so sad. Even the teacher wouldn't eat it because she didn't know what it was. It was foreign to her. She wasn't willing to join us in our cultural experience. So I called up the teacher and I said, "Listen, I heard that, can we have a redo? Can we have a redo? Can I send something else? Because I didn't want my kid to feel like all the kids in her class would think that her food was disgusting." And so she said, "Ken, sure, you can bring whatever you want." I said, "Well, what do the kids like to eat?" She goes, "Uga im chocolate ve cornflakes." And I'm thinking to myself, what is that? What on earth is that? And I was like, "Ulai ugiyot shel chocolate cookies." "Oh, Ken zibaseder." So the next day I sent chocolate cookies and my kid was so nervous. And sure enough, everybody ate the cookies. Well, this is the crux of the matter. I told this story to Yisrael, and Yisrael told this story to other people that he works with. And basically, this goes to show you how much of an impact you can have in Yerushalayim, in Israel, right? We're big in a little palm, because they basically created a program, like a buddy program for Olim families with Israeli families. So this would never happen to any other kid ever again. And they sent out this email. I got this email like a few months, 6 months later, where it said there was a boy who went to a birthday party and he brought a carrot cake. And that was they changed the identifying details, but my kid was like, "Well, it was a girl and it wasn't a birthday party and it was a banana cake," but she knew that she made a difference. And it was incredible to me that we took this moment of like real nebuch. It was so sad, and turned it into a strength for the rest. I mean, the rest of the city, for all the Olim who would come after us, who would have the support of the Israeli classmates and their families to help them navigate these really complicated cultural things that you would never know. You would never know, but we really need to know. So thank you to Yisrael and to the whole team over there in your office, because it means so much to us that you listened to us, that you helped us, that you supported us. And we've been here 4 years, and I've been in touch with Yisrael for 4 years, and they never cease to be supportive and wonderful. And so I'm so grateful to be here in Yerushalayim, to have this amazing team working with us, supporting us. I mean, when we were switching schools for my son, I was in touch with everybody. It was just, people were always there for us. And it's a true bracha to be living here in Yerushalayim and to be so lucky.
Shira, you are so eloquent. We could listen to you for hours. That was such a beautiful story. It's still really, really pains me to hear that story.
She's
I feel
okay.
so bad.
You know what, Yisrael, can I tell you something? This will make you feel really good. The other day, there was a bat shirut in the school, and she was listening to Ayelet speak to a bunch of other Olim kids in English, and she came up to her and she said, "Why? I did not know that you were American. I thought that you were Israeli." So
Oh,
Baruch
wow.
Hashem, she has integrated.
Fantastic.
She is
That
fluent.
is amazing.
Wow. Thanks for sharing. Wow. Beautiful. Important.
That's amazing. Thank you. That's such an inspiring story. Thank you very, very much, Shira, for your time, for your inspiration, and kol hakavod to your kindler. It's
Amen.
really very, very hard. It's not easy to integrate into school. It's probably one of the most difficult times to make aliyah, but you see from Shira and her family that you can do it. And when you do it, your kids really manage to integrate in a relatively short amount of time. I've been living in Israel for over 20 years, and I'm sure that your kids' Hebrew is better than my Hebrew, and they've been here less than 4 years, no doubt. Talking about kids integrating into classes, we want to move on now to Tzipporah. Tzipporah is herself somebody who made Aliyah as a child into the school system. So Tzipporah, could you introduce yourself and tell us how old you were when you made Aliyah, a little bit about your family, and then also what are you doing now?
Yeah,
Tzipporah.
sure. So my family made Aliyah when I was 14. So I started and finished high school in Israel. And right now I'm currently studying computer science at Municipal in Jerusalem.
Oh, wow, excellent. Now, could you very briefly describe your high school experience in Israel? What's
Yeah.
interesting is because you came from a school in America, you were in the school system in America, and then you switched in the middle and moved to a school here in Israel. Can you share a little bit about that experience, that switch?
Yeah, it was quite an eventful experience, lots of ups and lots of downs. I wouldn't say it was necessarily hard, but I would say it required a lot of effort on my part to try to figure everything out and stay up to par with the rest of my class until you really learn the language. So you're just sitting through around 7 hours a day of listening to gibberish and not understanding anything. And so you're extremely bored, and you just know that everything that you're learning and that you're missing, you're going to have to somehow make it up and try to find the material and get notes and translate. So that I would say was one of the most challenging parts of just trying to figure out how we're going to pass the test. In Israel, there's something called bagriyot, so which are standardized tests that they give in Israel to high schools. So they test you on the material from 9th to 12th grade. And so you basically need to know all the material that you're learning for these tests. So throughout high school, that's basically what it was, trying to get the material and learning Hebrew and making friends. And there were stressful times, but at the end of the day, like when you look at the finished product, I've seen so many Tinolim who sadly, some of them did end up going back to where they came from. But to the ones who stayed, what I've seen for myself and for the rest is that there's a tremendous pride and love for living in Israel. And I think it's because when you go through this, right, we went through a battle, we had sweat, tears, but when you go through that and you put in all the effort, then you have greater appreciation. It becomes yours. So at the end of the day, like, thank God, this is how we view Israel now.
Well, that's amazing. If you would, potential olim who are listening to you, people who are thinking about Aliyah, teens, preteens, thinking about Aliyah, do you have any advice that you could give them that they could think about now whilst they're still in Chutz La'aretz, things for them to consider, things that they can prepare so that when they arrive, it will be smoother for them?
Yeah, so I would say if you know you're making Aliyah or thinking about it, then it's always good to get a head start on learning Hebrew. Before I came, I had Ulpan lessons in America, and just to get more familiar with the Hebrew language. Also, what happened before I moved is that the school I went to, our class, we had like a group chat. And so I came knowing no friends, but because of this chat, I was able to meet some of the people in my class beforehand. So even to call up the school and ask if there's even one person that you can be in touch with, so that you're not walking in not knowing anyone, but you'll have someone there on your side. And also there's a lot more tips that I can share. I recently made a website to help Olim who make Aliyah in high school. And on the page, I could actually, if you let me show my screen, then I can show
Sure.
you.
Could you share? Can I just tell everybody how inspirational Tzipporah is? Because you'll be too modest to say this. But Tzipporah went through this experience that she described. We met Tzipporah in our office a month or two ago, and Tzipporah has created an incredible website for Teen Olim. She went through this experience of integrating into schools, understood what she needed, and has this phenomenal website where the mentors that Shira mentioned earlier, you provide that service on your website as well. If you can share the website now and talk about this incredible resource that you created.
Okay. So this is the website, and it's specifically for teens in high school. So there's different pages, there's tips and advice, a blog. So the first page are the tips that I was talking about. So I asked around a lot of different teens who made Aliyah in high school, and asked them. I found that the best advice I got were from the teens themselves who made Aliyah themselves. So just there's so many different tips. And also this page is really cool to see how there's so many Olim who made Aliyah at this age. Like, we're not alone in this. So that was really cool. The next page is a blog about about the land of Israel. I found that teens, so they come because of their parents, right? Their parents wanted to come, but it wasn't really their choice. So with all the negative that they just see around them, this page teaches them like what is the positives about being in Israel. Like, why did my family uproot our family to come here at this hard age? So there's articles and videos that are explaining it. There's another page on getting set up with an Israeli pen pal. So I know most of the people here are moving to Yerushalayim, and there's going to be American type schools, more Israeli type schools. And many times the parents you may choose to send to is American schools for better integration, or depending on the case. And if you do, then a lot of times the teens won't necessarily get a chance to learn the Israeli culture and really get to integrate. So in this way, then this gives them another opportunity where they can either Zoom, email, WhatsApp, whatever it is, with Israelis across Israel, down south, up north. And also you're practicing your Hebrew, and there's a program where you can Zoom each other, and so you get to do that. There's also a page a lot of times when religious kids come to Israel. So when you come, you're busy learning Hebrew, and academics is a huge part, but sadly, the religious learning gets thrown to the bottom because there's just too much of everything else that they need to do. So in this way, they can keep it up and actually have some kind of Torah outlet, because they won't necessarily be getting it, especially in schools when they're having all these programming, but they're not getting any of it because of the language barrier. And the last page, which I think is the most, I find is the most important, is information database. So on this page, there's tons of information on what are bug real, what benefits do people get, different types of bug real. I can even show you. So it goes through OPON and just different things that schools won't necessarily know or be able to tell you. And so this just has Israel, the whole Israeli school system is very different than America, with the points and there's different types of tests that you can do. So this page has that. And yeah, all in all, it's for these teens. If you're coming with teens, then check it out. Subscribe to the website.
What's the website? What could you write in the chat?
Yeah.
The name of the website.
Yeah, for sure.
And we'll in our follow-up email, we'll include a link to your website too.
Okay. Yeah, it's called Teen Survival Guide to Aliyah. You can also reach out with any questions. I can write it.
So
Yeah.
beautiful. Wow. Kol hakavod, Tzipporah. Wow, what an initiation. Bravo. What a great initiative. I'm
I
sure
want
it's going to
people
help
to
so
have a
many
better
people.
experience than I did. You know, we're all in this together.
It's so helpful. Wow. I hope it gets to many people. When did you start this?
I started it around half a year ago. I started it like a year ago, actually. Yeah, a year ago is when it started.
I can only stress that
It's
preparing
really-
somebody for making Aliyah is a major part, because you don't just leave in one day with the suitcases and the next day, you know, like unfortunately we hear today in the news with all the refugees, they have to leave their houses and they lose their life. But here we have an opportunity to talk about it and to prepare and to say goodbye to our friends, which is a major thing. And here you're saying, you know, you can prepare yourself, and there's so many ways to prepare, whether it is to study the Hebrew or to make friends abroad ahead of time. And then it's not all so strange. Anyway, it's going to be a challenge, but you can make things a little bit smoother along the way. And it's beautiful what you've done. And it's very important. Thank you for sharing.
Excellent. Tzipporah is very inspiring, as you know. Tzipporah, just to conclude, do you have like a parting thought, a tip, an idea, a motto that you want to share as your concluding remarks?
Yeah, I actually just last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, I was speaking with someone who said that her kids were having trouble in school. They came at an older age, and they were talking about tutoring and how they didn't think of getting, and that they weren't too happy about getting it. And I realized, like, for a lot of people, when you come at a later age, right, or not even at a later age, when you come in general to school in Israel, it's okay to get help. It's okay to get tutoring, and you shouldn't be ashamed of that. And kids think that, oh, they're less smart or they need all this help. It's because something's wrong with them. But no, they don't know the language. That's all it is. And so a little help is it can bring them so far. And so they can't be afraid. They shouldn't be ashamed. So tell your kids that. It's very important. It did so much for me, the tutoring and all the help that I got, and I made it through with that. So
Excellent. You're so inspiring. It's very hard to continue. You speak so eloquently, and Mama, everyone else is speaking about an idea, but you experienced it. So when you speak, it comes from a different place. I want to just thank you very, very much for your time, Tzipporah, and for sharing your phenomenal website. And Be'ezrat Hashem, it should serve many, many thousands of olim coming to Israel, should have a smoother integration in this country. Bizchut your phenomenal website. Kol hakavod. I want to add to one thing that Tzipporah said. I think you said it's so true, and it's very, very important. We tell this to the olim. when they come to Israel, and that is the first year in Israel after you make Aliyah. Your first year in school is not a year of academic excellence. You won't shine academically. If you normally get a 90, then you get a 70 in your first year. That 70 in the first year is such a phenomenal achievement. Your goal in your first year in Israel is really just to try to learn how to speak Hebrew, to learn the cultural norms. You need to add 20 points to every score. 20 points is just for sitting in the classroom. And you need to see it that way. Your kids need to see it that way. When everyone sees it that way, then Be'ezrat Hashem, you'll, it'll be a healthy integration into the system. That's where Dorit comes in as well. We're going to draw our discussion to a close in a minute. If anyone's got a question that they want to ask, they can write it in the chat. But before we come to a close, Dorit, do you have any final comments you want to share?
Just one more thing that comes into mind, that we actually spoke, Israel, when we met the parents last year in Israel, and we heard that wonderful lady speak, and she said that it's important that the parents remember to be always involved in the kids' life in Israel when they come, whether it's academics or social issues, even if they don't speak the language. I'm talking maybe about the earlier stages, but even with the teens, even if the parents that are arriving don't know the language yet, and they may be very busy with everything that they have to do while they're coming to Israel, and it's very understandable, still to be involved with a kid's life, because we know with other cultures that have come, with other Olim that have come from different places that they didn't speak the language, the triangle sometimes changed. And the kids who learned the language became their translators. We don't want that to happen. We want the parents to continue to be the parents and the kids to be kids. And so when the kids come home, to ask them how the day was, and even to open up the books with them and to see what they've learned, or in their own language. And it's okay to just keep being involved in their lives all the time. It's very, very important for the kids and for the parents and for the family unit the whole time. I think that's just another point that I wanted to stress throughout this evening.
Absolutely.
And to build the trust between the system and the parents. But that's also why I'm here, to do it together, to bridge throughout whatever gaps there may be. Hopefully that things go smooth, but they don't always go as smooth as we might want them to.
But your goal, Dorit, is to mediate. You're not an advocate for a parent against the school. Rather, you work with the school and with the parents together in order, everyone's got the same goal, and that is to help the kids, and you help both sides navigate it together.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The idea is that there's a total cooperation between the schools and the families. But if at times there's some maybe miscommunication or misunderstanding, or sometimes even to the point of just translating or filling forms, I'm not there just for filling up the forms. I'm much more to accompany the family, and I'm on both sides, but we're all together. It's a common denominator, and no one's against anyone. Of course, we're all together, and the idea is just to make better for the child. The best interest of the child is always in the middle for all sides. Of course, I'm not an advocate for any of the sides. That's about it. If you want to add anything, I don't know if Abby still, if she wants to add anything, or if Israel, from your experience.
I just want to add two points to end, not really tips, just 2 points. I want to remind everybody about the excellent resources that are available in Jerusalem. Pre-Aliyah, Yaakov and I are here to help you plan your Aliyah. Yaakov focusing on employment, and as we see tonight, my focus is education, helping parents find the right school for their kids. Baruch Hashem, we're blessed with 6 children. children, all been to different schools. We worked together with Natalie and together with Dorit in the education department to assist you. But I wanted to mention two projects just for you to be aware of. There is a parenting center that's run by OU Israel, OU, the Orthodox Union, set up a parenting center for Anglo parents here in Jerusalem. Dorit and I actually ran a program with them. We did a program with them at the beginning of the school year, where we went to a school and we gave the kids a tour of the school so they see this is what the chatzer looks like, this is what a classroom looks like, this is what a pencil case looks like, this is what a aruchat eser, the meal, that's what this looks like. It was a program that we did together with the OU Israel Center. So throughout the year, they run a parenting workshop and other resources that are available for New Olim, and we work very much in close we work together with them in partnership with them to run programs for families in Jerusalem. I'll be happy via email to send information for anyone that wants to hear more about those parenting programs. If there's no more questions, I will thank very, very much Abby at the beginning for joining us. Thank you very, very much. Shira is such an eloquent speaker, and we're so grateful to you for coming and to share your stories. It like relives memories, and you tell stories so well. Thank you very much. Tzipporah, you're an inspiration because you saw something that you experienced, and you really provided a phenomenal tool to help people in the future. They shouldn't come to the same, that they should also be able to get through the situation as you did, integrating into schools. Dorit, do you have any final words that you wanted to say?
No, I think everything was said. Thank you very much. I think this evening was very important. If anyone has any questions.
Dorit is here. Dorit is phenomenal. Dorit is your contact once you're in the schools to make sure that things are going smoothly between you and the school. So thank you all very, very much for coming. Yaakov was behind the scenes making sure everything went smoothly. Yaakov, thank you very, very much. Thank you everyone for joining us, and see you all be'ezrat Hashem in Yerushalayim. Purim Sameach.
And Michelle, thank you for putting tonight together. Much appreciated.
Kol tov.